Good afternoon. Today is the 12th of October, and it's time for yet another not particularly interesting, very vague, and probably quite boring vlog. So just literally got back today from a little filming trip to Buckinghamshire. But before I did the filming trip, I actually went to London to do another job for a client, and it was an interesting one. So like so many of my jobs in London, and I do a lot of jobs in London, always have done, this was a client who wanted an automatic car. As a lot of you know, automatic cars, particularly in London, are stupidly expensive. Like, more than you'd sort of ever expect, really. So, for example, one of the cars we were looking at, which would have been about £5,000 normally, for a manual one in good condition, was about 7.5. You know, they can be up to 50% more than the manuals, because people just don't seem to want the manuals anymore. So if you want a cheaper car, buy one with a manual gearbox. So this particular brief was to find an automatic car that was nice and comfortable for around £7,500. That sort of money, what you'll be getting are things like, I don't know, Hyundai iX20, Kia Venga, getting Vauxhall Mokka. There's lots of those around. Maybe even stretching out to something like a Toyota Avensis or a Mazda 6, something like that. This particular search was 4 different cars. Because 2 of the dealerships were literally yards apart, it was possible to do 4. Normally I do maximum 3, but this was actually 4. So the first one we looked at was a 2015 Vauxhall Mokka 1.4 SE. The SE was a really, really nice specification for the Mokkas. You've got heated steering wheel, heated seats, climate control, leather seats, all this sort of thing. And the 1.6 petrol with the Mokkas wasn't available automatic gearbox, so all the pre-facelift Mokkas pretty much for the petrols were automatic, being 1.4 turbo. Now, the 1.4 turbo does get a bad reputation because of sometimes you can have problems with timing chains and the head gaskets of the turbos. And actually, the first one we looked at didn't have any of that. That was fine. The issue was more what it didn't have. So the car had quite clearly been sitting for a very long time. The dealer left it right at the end to say the car didn't have a V5, and if you know anything about the channel, I'm not a fan of cars without V5s. I do not think anyone should buy a car without a V5 because it is an absolute headache if you don't have one. So that was pretty much a red flag there anyway. We said, oh, we don't have any service history. We've got some, I think, somewhere. I was like, well, you put it on sale. Why can't you sort out the V5 and the service history before you put the car on sale? Surely that would be a better idea, but never mind. It wasn't even clean. Like, you know, it wasn't like it had just been dusty and sitting for a little while. The interior hadn't been cleaned either, which was not the best when you're spending £7,500 on a car. Mine was pretty low, about 50,000, I think, but the presentation was not good. Part job was missing. I think the tyre and fitted pump was missing. The towing eye cover at the front was missing. And you're just like, well, you have to spend some money to sort all this stuff out. So, not the best. The next car we saw, which was pretty much next door at a different dealership, was a 2015 Hyundai iX20 automatic. All the petrol automatics for the Kia Vengas and the iX20s, now they're pretty much the same car actually. They were built either in a similar part of the world or the same factory, both those two. They're very similar, and they're actually very, very good cars. I've sourced a megaton of those for clients, the Vengas and the iX20s. In fact, I've got reviews of an iX20 that I sourced for a client in 2023, I think it is. And then a Venga I also sourced in 2023 on the channel. Those were both cars I sourced for clients. One of them was actually a 1.6 automatic, like this one. So this is a pre-facelift car, which had the 4-speed auto in it. It had done 56,000 miles. I think it was 1.6 active. And on the face of it, it looked pretty good. There wasn't any rust. One of this has a bit of white on it. I think that was pretty much where someone tried to polish it, get the polish off something. So that was fine. The problem came when we started to drive the car, and there was just this sort of shuddering or hesitation, which I thought was probably a car needing a gearbox service. Now the chap said, "Oh, it just needs some spark plugs." I was like, "Well, possibly, but it could be something a lot more serious than that." Again, why you put a car on sale for fault like that even my client was disturbed about, I don't really know. I'm not sure, viewers, what people think they can get away with, and the fact that, like that would be picked up under the warranty anyway, or the consumer rights which people had to do with dealers in the first 6 months in particular, very strong. So I don't know why people do this. You see a lot of excellent dealers like Lee from Car UK, or James from Chop's Garage, or that sort of thing. They talk about this sort of stuff, and they're very sort of conscious. They don't want to put a car on sale with things like missing V5s and shuddering transmissions, things like that. But there are a lot of dealers who will do that, obviously, because we just found a couple. So that was not good. So we moved on to the next car, which was actually a particular favourite of mine, a 2012 Toyota Avensis 1.8 automatic. This car had done 39,000 miles, and it was very, very nice. Now, I drove one of these on the channel back in December last year. It was actually one of my favourite cars of 2024. Surprisingly good cars, as long as they're not rusty and they're not neglected. Generally, they're very good. The 1.8 is shared with the Prius votes, not a hybrid car. It's a standard 1.8 automatic. The CVT gearboxes, they do sometimes need servicing, and the oil is very expensive. So if my client had bought this particular car, I would have recommended doing a gearbox service on it. Apart from that, they don't really have many problems, to be honest, at all. You have to watch out for rust and lack of servicing, but that's kind of about it on an Avensis, and he quite liked it. So it was good. It had a reversing camera. That was very similar to the one I drove last year, but it was a black car. The one I drove was silver or grey, I think, actually. Apart from that, this one had done very low mileage, only had 2 owners. It was very, very nice. Then we moved on to another Mocha. This was actually very similar in price. They're both sort of 7.4, 7.5, something like that, which was also a 1.4 SE automatic. This car had a roof rack, which, obviously you take off and put somewhere safe, for me. But you're nice to take it off and just put it away. This one drove absolutely fine. It was much better than the other one we looked at. It was, I think, a 64 registration, and it was all fine, apart from the really common problem on the Mochas, but the first generation ones, is the surround in the centre console where all the buttons are. There's a silver surround, and it always just flakes off. Always. I've not seen one that doesn't have that issue, or they've had to solve it. And sometimes the badge of the steering wheel flakes off. But apart from that, this one was fine. It had a parcel shelf. I think it had a spare wheel in it. The problem is that I opened up the bonnet and looked at the coolant reservoir, and not only was there sort of residue kind of stuck to the outside of it, so that at the top it was all dark, but there was stuff floating in the coolant. Now, I thought that it was a sign the car possibly had blown a head gasket or something like that. But what I've since found out, having spoken to Mr. Coleman, the British mechanic who looks after all our cars, is that that's actually a sign of the automatic gearbox failing, because the transmission fluid has mixed with the coolant, and there's a pipe somewhere that's gone. And basically, after that, you have to either repair the gearbox or get a new one. So with the iX20, that apparently with shuddering is a failure of the torque converter, which again you have to get a replacement gearbox or repair the existing one. And this is sort of £1,500, £2,000 a job in either the Mocha or the iX20. So I just learned over the course of many, many years, I am not a mechanic. I don't claim to be. I don't work on cars or anything, but I just know what a lot of common faults are and what to look for generally when I go and see a car. I've been doing this job a very long time now. I started in January 2017. So you just kind of get to know what you need to look out for. And if anything is just not right, I've learned you can just walk away. So recommendation at the end of the day with my client was just the Aventus is the best car. There's something up with the Mocha. I probably wouldn't buy it. The other Mocha we looked at with missing V5 and other things, don't buy it. The iX20, there's something up with the gearbox. He said it's spark plug, it's probably not, so maybe don't buy that either. And he's currently deciding what he wants to do. So there we go. So that is it. Another life in the day independent vehicle consultant. So thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment below. And we shall see you again soon for another not particularly interesting and very vague video.